of Education, please. Oh, wait. Are we doing the pledge
Yeah,
again?
you start to reconvene in the pledge, yeah. the
Okay.
organization.
Oh, there it is, sorry. I didn't have my glasses on. The Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Sanderson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have our annual organizational meeting, item E. The first item is nomination and election of board officers. The recommended motion that the board consider, nominate, and elect the president of the board and the clerk of the board for 2012. Do I hear any nominations?
I would like to nominate Mary Schaefer to serve another year as president of the board.
Second that.
Enthusiasm.
Okay. Any discussion? Other nominations?
Question will be to you.
I could do it for one more year, so. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And then we have, we need a clerk.
I would like to nominate Troy to be clerk this year.
I'll second that before this.
A little arm swing.
Not quite the same enthusiasm.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 2, appointment of superintendent to secretary. Recommended motion that the board appoint the interim superintendent to secretary of the board.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Item 3, selection of representative and alternative representative to fill vacancies on the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organization. The recommended motion for the 2011-2012 year. Recommended motion that the board select a representative and an alternate representative to serve on the Committee on School District Organization 2012. And this is actually not to serve on the committee, which I actually serve on. It's to serve on the committee that votes on who will actually serve on the committee. It's really bizarre. Seriously. So that vote you did last fall, remember you asked me about that? You were voting for a representative from our region, and that's what that was for. So since you're going to be clerk, maybe you don't want to have that important role to have to vote every fall on. So I don't know, anybody would like to nominate anybody else?
I'll nominate Sherry. It's perfect.
It's
great way to
really
get
easy.
you.
It's one vote once a year.
I'll coach you on it.
Look
Sure.
good.
Yeah.
Look good on the resume.
I just didn't get it out fast.
I'm going to need a second on that.
Oh, I'd second that.
Great. Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we all need an alternate representative.
Oh, Mike. I make a motion that Mike be the
Okay,
alternate.
that's great.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Item 4, the board meeting dates. Recommended motion that the board approve the regular meeting of the Board of Education to be held on the second and fourth Tuesdays of each month at 6 p.m. with the exception of March, July, August, November, and December due to calendar holidays.
So just a point of clarification, that would mean that in those months, there's only
Only
one
one.
meeting?
Meeting in the-
And is it in the first or the second or the fourth?
Typically,
It's a
in
floor.
March, it'll be the first. July and August, we typically set later when we get closer to the summer and everybody knows there's summer plans. Often it's the third as opposed to the second or the fourth when we get to this, to try to keep them in a reasonable connection to each other.
So
And
moved.
November's the first and December's the first.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And our board historian would say it's been those same days for
Oh, I need to know how many years.
at
it's
least
been.
40 years. Okay,
40, 50 years.
I'm going to change it now.
Don't change it.
Okay, item F, adoption and approval of the
Are we
agenda.
going to shift moving?
Oh, yeah.
have to.
Around?
That was the end of the
Do
organization.
we need to move tonight, or can we just do it next week?
We'll do it next time.
You can, yep, just
Yeah,
move the gavel and, oh, you don't move the
I-
gavel, never mind.
she can do it.
Stays.
Yeah.
Move, is that required or
Yeah.
for fun?
Okay, item F, adoption and approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item G, special recognitions and presentations. And this is our favorite part for the students. We only have an organizational one once a year, you know. It clearly doesn't take very long, but this is our favorite part, which is when we have our student presentations. So tonight we have representatives from CASA and Petaluma, and we have representatives from Sonoma Mountain and Carpe Diem as well. Would you like to introduce your students, please?
Absolutely. So, good to see all of you again. Thank you for letting us come by and talk. We are going to change mode slightly tonight. Normally we have 4 students, 2 from each site. Tonight we have a single student that's going to do a presentation for you. I wouldn't say she's 4 times as squared away as the average student, but pretty close. She's kind of a stunning example of what the 2 small schools can accomplish and help students accomplish. So I'm very proud to present Sarah Patrick. She's going to talk about it tonight. And she's a bit of a disadvantage.
I was on crutches last month, so I totally relate.
Take your time, take a breath. There you go.
Yeah, there's no reason she can't sit up
You want to sit?
Yes, please.
Okay. So then you'll really have to belt it out. That's all I need.
there.
Yeah.
Put the podium out of her way, pressing the head.
Then will you put this down over here?
I take those crutches, so we can see her, and then I'm sure he'll bring her back.
Yeah, I'd happily move the table back, actually.
Good evening, my name is Sarah Patrick and I'm a senior at Carpe Diem. I'm afraid I'm not very good at speeches, so instead I'm going to be telling you a story. But I guarantee you'll get to hear about my school. This is a story about a girl, and she just entered her sophomore year at Petaluma High School. And she was nothing like she thought she would be. Instead of the blonde cheerleader with straight A's she thought she'd be, she's actually a flunking student with not some very great friends, and she could not look people in the eye. That was the one thing. She could never look people in the eye and talk to them. Her mother was sure the girl would become a high school dropout if she didn't do something. So she looked at every alternative high school in Petaluma and finally decided on Carpe. The mother warned the girl how important it was that she got into Carpe Diem. And she only wanted what was best for her daughter, even if the girl didn't know it at the time. Without much fuss, the girl enrolled at Carpe. And on her first day, the girl knew she would utterly hate it there. Everyone was friends with everyone, and she didn't know a single person in the school. However, she loved that she got to work by herself at her own pace, instead of at the ability of the teacher or the other students. By the end of the school year, she actually made some friends, and she wasn't staring at the floor or mumbling as much. In her junior year, she was accepted into a Gifted Young Writers program. This was very important to her, and it gave her a sense of purpose. It also boosted her self-esteem exponentially and made her realize what she wanted to be, that she wanted to be an author. She took her schoolwork very seriously that year and earned up as much credit as she could. Over these 2 years, the girl had changed drastically, gradually but drastically, and into a confident and more responsible and mature person. It wasn't until her family and friends pointed it out to her that she even noticed it herself. Last semester, this now young woman entered her senior year, and although she missed her old teachers, she was very happy with the new ones she was given. Mr. Winders, her new math and PE teacher, is very helpful at helping students who can't figure out an assignment, and makes PE fun for kids, even those who aren't that willing to play. Mr. Easton, her science and nutrition teacher, discusses the subject with students and shows instructional videos, which makes things a lot easier. Mr. Kinder, her history, government, and economics teacher, talks about current events and along with the history, and gives us as many opportunities as possible to make up credit. Government had become the young girl's favorite subject because she got to discuss politics and the history of democracy. And Ms. DeLeon, although everyone just calls her Ms. D, is the English and creative writing teacher. In English, students have more creative assignments, along with spelling, grammar, and concept teachings. And in creative writing, they're given prompts, or they get to make up their own and write their own story or essay. Granted, the young woman loves class a lot more now that she doesn't have to leave at 3 o'clock. Most students who are struggling with their work or aren't earning the minimum amount of credit have to stay till 3 o'clock instead of the 2:15 minimum. If students got really bad, they're often put on a contract, although no students have really transferred because of the contract. They often use the time and the help they get to become more successful in class. Although the young women never participated in them, the students go on monthly hikes for PE and elective credit, as well as campouts with Sonoma Mountain. And the students seem really enthusiastic about the spring campout because of all the good hiking weather. Another program offered by Sonoma Mountain and Carpe is Farms, which is run by Mr. Easton. Once a month, the program takes the students who volunteer at the beginning of the year to learn about and participate in various forms of agriculture in the Sonoma County area. Odysseyware, an online class program, is offered to students who need to catch up on credit from failed classes at their previous school. So far, mostly in art class. The young woman had actually taken an English program over the summer and also a psychology program over the fall, and she found it to be a very fun program. Never before had she actually done homework willingly. The young woman knows Carpe isn't directly responsible for all the changes she's made, but she does recognize that it gave her the tools to change. Carpe Diem gave her an opportunity to change and the support of its staff, which is what makes Carpe Diem such a great school in the girls' opinion. The school gives students a chance to show personal responsibility for their future and shows them what it means to be an adult. So I'd like to thank the board members for giving me the opportunity to go to Carpe and to tell you this story, my story. A story that would have remained unfinished and unwritten if I didn't get to go to Carpe. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart.
And so you're an excellent representative of how one of our programs is able to help you and the other students at your school. So thank you for presenting to us. Do you have a question? Yeah,
You know what, Sarah? The whole time you looked us in the eye and you never mumbled.
Do you guys mind if she
Oh, no,
just
that would be
keeps
fine.
rotating out the door?
Yes.
You're on a roll,
That's
okay.
fine. Thank you very much. Okay, and while we rearrange here, I would like to have our student representatives from Casa Grande High report on the activities at their sites.
And you can move forward.
Yes, you can. Thank you very much.
So I'm Adriana Ramirez, co-CASA ASB president.
And I'm Kaylee Johnson, co-CASA president. Okay, so tonight is 8th grade parent night at CASA. Parents from Kenilworth are there to hear about CASA's programs, including elective opportunities for freshmen, as well as taking a tour of our campus. Thursday night, January 12th, is our annual cluster night. Parents and students can come talk to cluster teachers and students about the 4 career clusters for upperclassmen: marketing, media management, green career pathway, health career pathway, and liberal studies. Student signups for classes for next year will begin next week. Another parent education night takes place next week in the CASA library. The topic is the social and emotional health of teenagers. Our presenter is Susan Victor, CASA parent and Sonoma State faculty member. Our annual Booster Crab Feed is Saturday, January 21st at the Lucchese Center. During the holiday season, Casa Grande student body delivered and donated 3 Thanksgiving dinners to local families and COTS, bought Christmas families, 3 families, and made cookies with senior citizens. And the Honor Society canned food drive bought in 2,061 pounds of food.
In advance of the quickly approaching Cassian stock, the RSP department is planning to heavily use the Study Island software. Questions that are representative of those on the test are projected on our new LCD projectors, or smartboards, and the students answer the questions using response clickers that were donated from our friends over the PEF. The students have a good time using the system and they are learning. Most students in the Read 180 classrooms profess not to enjoy reading, however they do enjoy a good story. As a supplement to the program, we will be reading The Hunger Games as a class. They will be independent independently reading a portion of the book. It is compelling and adventurous read. They will not be able to resist. Casa Grande's outdoor learning environment, OLE, continues to move forward. The main grading is complete. The pathways are in. The Sunrise Rotary have generously donated $11,000 for irrigation and 42 fruit trees. They scheduled to plant the trees the weekend of January 21st. We continue our commemorative brick sales and plan our first installation soon. Volunteers are welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And a representative from Petaluma High.
I'm Hannah Wackenow, and I'm the representative from Petaluma High School. Before the break, we had a lot going on still at Petaluma High School. We had our Winter Spirit Week, the 2 weeks before the end of the year, where we had an informal jungle dance called Morp, which was a fundraiser for the seniors. It's prom spelled backwards. We had our holiday fair, which was actually extended into the evening this year, so family members and parents, community members were able to come, which was really great. And the FFA chapter had their cake sale on December 15th. But everyone was really happy to be done with finals and having a break. Unfortunately though, the teacher's lounge did suffer a break-in, even though nothing was taken, just the window was shattered, so good news but bad news. We like to congratulate our JV girls basketball team for beating Casa last Friday. But now that we're back at school, there's a lot going on again. Both basketball and wrestling have geared up for their normal seasons. Thursday, we have the first of 3 installments of Challenge Day, which is an anti-bullying seminar that students are available to go to. There'll be 3 days over the next month or so. This Saturday, the band program is very excited because they're having a fundraiser at the Mystic, where the jazz band will be performing, and they've actually got a more well-known band to play like a main show, so they are like the opening act, and tickets are $25, and all of that goes back to our band program. So the students are very excited about that. Looking more into the future, both FFA and the junior class have their dances on February 13th. The FFA dinner dance is more parent-oriented, where the junior class holds every year King of Hearts dance. Our 8th grade parent night is this week, or next week, excuse me, on January 19th, where parents and kids will be able to come and decide if Petaluma High is a good choice for them, and we hope they believe so. The next day we have a blood drive, which I think will be our 2nd or our 3rd, which we're always really enthusiastic about. And the following week we have our annual talent show. So everyone at Petaluma is happy to be back and looking for the semester.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is a report, but before we get to this report, we can take a very brief recess in case some of you need to sneak out and do homework. Mr. Bass, Director of Special Services, and Dave Rose, Director of Student Services, will present an update on our progress toward board goals for the 2011-2012 school year.
Hold on, I thought we were ready to go. There we go.
Okay, so this is our team approach. So last year we did a little bit more lengthy update with our charts and our things that had to do with that. And so we're doing something a little bit different this year and making it a little bit more relevant. So anyway, so this is our mid-year update. Just a few of the things that we've been doing and some of the data that we have. Because being able to do an update mid-year, sometimes we don't have all the data. So, okay, so to refresh us, our overarching goal is to increase achievement for all students and close the achievement gap in order to prepare students for college and career options. And under that, we have 3 goals. One which is to have academic support for students, support for our instructional team, and then our 3rd one, which is the supportive learning environment. And Jane is going to start then.
Okay,
So what we decided to do is just highlight a couple of things that are new and that we've been focusing on. So the first thing that is new is unfortunately called the STAR Reading Test, and it's not the CST STAR Reading. It is from the Renaissance Learning Company, and it is a new ongoing assessment that we're doing. Some schools were already doing it, and as we are continuing our quest for better ongoing informative data that we can inform instruction with, this is the second in a pilot. Last year we talked about DIBELS. This year we're talking about STAR. Okay? The STAR is kind of interesting because it goes K-12. It is also one of those fancy smancy online tests, assessments, that branches. So I'll use Steve, and if little Steve Bowman went in and took a test and he got the first question on his assessment correct, then the second question would increase in rigor. But if little Steve Bowman goes in and doesn't do well, doesn't answer the first question correctly, then it will decrease, and it does it automatically. We are going to be seeing a lot of this in the future.
So how did Steve do?
I didn't get Steve. I can't tell you how Steve did, but I can tell you how almost 3,000 kids did.
Individual results are confidential.
Right.
Good answer.
So you can see the schools that are listed here that are included in this data. McKinley and McDowell are still using DIBELS. We're still trying that, so they're not reflected here. Grant and Pengrove are not reflected here because here in this age of technology, they are schools that already had this going on, and their data lives in another cloud. And we're trying to merge the two clouds, and we're not quite there yet. So,
But it's the same test?
same test, same assessment. So these are the schools that have assessed. We have almost 3,000 kids, just under 3,000 kids in those numbers. And you can see it's pretty evenly distributed across the quartiles, as we call them. The kids who are below the 25th percentile are the kids who would be scoring far below basic on the CSTs. The kids in the 50th or the 25th to the 75th are kind of a combination of kids who would be scoring low, below basic and then through proficient on the CSTs. And then the kids 75% or above are going to be the kids who probably will score advanced on the CST. This is surprisingly predictive of CST scores. It also, the wonderful thing about this, DIBELS also does this, but this is very, very teacher friendly, and it will take it down to individual students. We can assess kids up to 1 time a week on this so that we can actually progress monitor them along for the kids that we're really, really worried about. It tests all reading skills in all 5 realms of literacy and reading development. And it does prescriptions. There are actually some lessons and things that are embedded in the software that teachers can access. So it's a very slick little system. People are very happy with it. We'll see what happens. First part. Second thing that we wanted to talk about was our writing, and our writing K6. This is really 1/6, my mistake, because kindergarten does not take the assessment in the fall, only in the winter and the spring. We picked writing because we spent a lot of time on writing last year, revising the rubrics, getting them grade level specific, and so this is what we're looking at this year. That first block of kids, it says they're performing below standard. And those are the kids that we continue to be worried about. You have these numbers in front of you, and you might want to look at those because these numbers are still a little tiny up there.
These are tinier.
Yeah. We couldn't get it to. The second block are the kids, it says approaching standard. So those are the kids who we're not too worried about because this is the beginning of the year. And through instruction, they will probably be on grade level by the time they get to the last benchmark. Finally, that last group of kids is the group of kids who are actually at this time above grade level. Okay? You can see we have 3 areas: applications, conventions, and strategies. And we are looking pretty strong. Third, fourth, we've got some issues in applications and a little bit in conventions. That pretty much aligns with the 4th grade writing test for the CSTs. So we're feeling pretty good about this data. We think it's pretty predictive. We haven't done an actual predictability study on it because it's brand new, but at this preliminary point, it's feeling pretty good. This is where the teachers get together and do holistic scoring, and it's very informative. Writing is an excellent form of assessment because it's reflective of student language and also their thinking. The next step with this is because all of our prompts are narrative, which means they're like stories. My favorite place, my favorite animal, what I did last summer, that kind of thing, is with the new National Common Core standards coming, there is a much greater emphasis on expository text, and so we will be needing to incorporate some expository into these assessments. Okay? CELT, California English Language Development Test. This is brand new information. This is this year, 11-12, okay? Because the test is given at the beginning of the year, okay? So this is what we look like. We've got, in the elementary school, we have about 548 EL students, English language learners. What I did is I didn't do the whole thing, but so what I did is, if you look at the very last, at the total across, you see the slash. The first number is how many kids are in that particular level this year, and then how many kids were in there last year.
Jackie Grant has 1 English
Yes, this year,
in the whole school?
in the whole school. Yeah. And he's a beginner. So let me talk a little bit about the levels. Level 1, beginning, they don't speak any English. Very, very, very little English. Level 2 is kind of a little step up from that. They will speak isolated words, phrases, that kind of thing. Level 3 is the intermediate level, and these are the kids that fool us, because these are the kids who get along really well out on the playground. Socially, they are adept. They look proficient. Academically, when you get into talking about things like velocity, they don't have the language in the background to understand that. So this is where we really start to work on academic language, not just social, but the academic language also. Level 4 is kind of a continuation of that. They're a little stronger, but still not there. Level 5, they're really coming in to full proficiency. Our goal is equivalency with English-only students. Once they get through level 5 is where we reclassify them. Okay? Does anybody see anything?
I do, yes. How
Yes.
come there's so many fewer?
Because last year what we discovered is that a lot of kids, and I'm going to flip to this one because it's even more dramatic in the secondary. We had a lot of kids who were sitting at level 5 who really needed to be reclassified. They met the criteria to be reclassified, and we just hadn't done it. So we did a push, and that is why we have so fewer at level 5. The other thing, if you look here, you can see that what we want is that the kids roll every year. So if we get the perfect kid who comes in at kindergarten, he's a beginner. At 1st grade, we want him to be early intermediate or level 2. 2nd grade, we want him to be level 3. 3rd grade, we want him to be level 4. We give them 2 years because level 3, level 4, this is where they get stuck. And it's hard. We're learning a new language, and we're expecting the kids to perform academically on an equal footing. So we give them 2 years. Okay? 5th grade, level 4. 6th grade, level 5, and reclassified. Studies have shown us strongly that if we do not reclassify the kids before they leave the elementary school, they will never be reclassified. So we are working very hard this year, and you'll see something about that in just a little bit. Okay? A through G completion. We've been looking at this, and here comes Tricia.
Here we go. So there are a number of objectives under each of our goals that we're beginning to get baseline data, and this is one of them. So we're looking at the 2010-11 school year, and this is for the number of students who graduates who met the A through G requirement. And one of the things that isn't here, though,
Yeah, Petaluma High is
It's
103.
sorry, it's SWIC.
Petaluma High is
It's
103.
is 103. I'm sorry, I thought I fixed it.
right in line.
I know some children that's on.
So it's right on, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right on here.
Right up, well, here's some
I'm sorry, I fixed it on the printout and I forgot to fix it on here.
Like, wait, but I heard you say that, and I'm going, what's wrong? Mine looks good. Okay, so. One of the things that's not indicated here, though, is a student who is going to the JC doesn't need all the requirements, and so that's not reflected. They may miss one class, and so then they don't meet all the requirements. So that part. So again, this is baseline data that we're looking at, and so at the end of this school year, we'll be able to see more data.
Okay.
Okay. From this, though, then we want to look at our post-secondary enrollment from 08-09, and the reason it's 08-09 is because it's from CDE, and they're usually a couple years behind in their data collection. And this is from National Clearinghouse that CDE, we can buy into through them. And if they were enrolled within 16 months after graduation, then this is the data that's collected. So you can see by ethnicity, the total number of high school graduates, and then the percentage who then enrolled in a post-secondary institution. If our schools or we as a district buy into this, then we'll also be able to get additional information about how many then later stayed after 16 months or within the 16 months and stayed later. So we'll have to look at that and see if we're going to be collecting that data. Okay. And then next is looking at, again, at A through G requirements. So currently we have 233 classes that meet the A through G requirements, 572 that do not. However, that may also be looking at like PE, those kinds of things, some electives that would not be needing to meet that. We also have 4 courses that offer JC credit by exam, and so you can see those: animation, web design, intro to machine tool technology, and auto and diesel. So that means that teachers come to us from the JC, and then if the students meet and pass that exam, then they don't have to take the lower class, the entry class. And then we also have AP classes that offer college credit by exam, and out of 322 students total who took the AP exam, 312 scored 3, 4, or 5, which meant they also had a passing grade in order to, not
You had
have
to
to
have
take
4
that.
or 5 to get college credit.
I'm sorry, what?
I thought you had to have 4 or 5 to get college credit.
3.
I believe it depends on what college.
Yeah.
There's different colleges, some only accept 5s.
UCs, they don't accept 3s.
So, anyway, so this is the data that we're collecting, and we will continue to do and look at all the courses, again, that are meeting A through G requirements.
One of the things that we've learned on this is we really don't offer 805 classes.
Yes, they're not all current.
So what this is telling us is that we have another job to do, and that's to clean the course catalog.
And again, the 572 can include, you know, EL classes, PE, some of the special ed classes and things like that would not meet that requirement. Okay.
Okay.
Goal 2.
Goal 2, and this kind of goes back to the whole EL thing and what you were talking about. We've taken this and we've divided it into two sections. Leadership training, and that's where we're bringing teachers and other folk into a leadership capacity within the district of some sort, and then implementation training. So 2 things that we've already done this year is, number 1 is SmartBoard training. We had, right before break, we had 15 people go through SmartBoard training with the SmartBoard company. And the SmartBoards are those fancy things, if you watch CSI and they move all the stuff around on the board, that's a SmartBoard. And so we have 15 people who went through the training. It was a 3-day training. They're all studying right now because they have to pass a test to be certified. And once they are certified, they will be our trainers in the district. So as the SmartBoard use grows, we will have embedded people right here in the district, and we won't have to go back to the company buying training. Right. Number 2 is the facilitator training, and the facilitator training is tied to the implementation training. So you guys have heard me talk about these little focus groups that we have going on. So we have groups of teachers across the district who went through EL training last summer. And there's like 5 or 6 people in a group. Sometimes it's all English teachers, sometimes it's across departments, sometimes it's the 4th grade team in a school, just depending on how it looks. This year we have consultants that we are using that are leading those groups. The facilitator training was to train our own people to take over the facilitation of those focus groups. In the focus groups, the teachers develop a lesson or some instructional strategies that they've been using. They actually go into another teacher's, one of the teachers volunteers from the group, and they go in and they teach that lesson. The other teachers watch them. They come out and they debrief that lesson. They talk about what worked well, what could they improve. Really a collaborative approach that is building that instructional team. We're going to be doing a survey with them to see what's working, how might we improve it, is it something we want to keep doing. Okay? Goal 3.
As Tricia said earlier, there are several different components of these goals, and we have some of the major objectives that we'll be looking at. Part of that was talking about having the counseling support system in place. So the guidance specialist and the counseling intern program is in place. It has allowed us to have roughly 60 to 70% of the mental health, substance use intervention, and campus support that we had last year. But due to all the budget cuts, having that level of support is really, really supportive for our teachers, our principals, and within the site. The biggest key for all of our different programs when we're talking about student support, prevention, or intervention, the first line, of course, is the parents and what they do and the message they're sending with their children. And then the second most important group is the teachers. They do a phenomenal job with our students. If that's not enough for a student, they're facing other challenges, that's where these interventions and prevention strategies start to come in. In terms of proposed measurements, we are looking at the time on campus for these interns and mental health providers. At the K-6 level, last year, and for the 3 years prior, due to the grant, we had 5 days per week at each of the K-6 sites. That's at 3. Those counselors are seeing lots of students running groups, interacting with parents, doing many meetings. Mental health at the secondary level, 3 days per week at each site. And then Project Success we've added at the junior high school level because of the increase in the number of substance abuse issues throughout the district. And we want to have a bridge between the DARE program that has happened in the past and that we're trying to bring back so that there's a junior high piece to that and then move on so that we have that counseling that continues. And then at the high school level, it's 3 days per week at each of those sites. This is an indication of the number of contacts so far this year. This includes the time right up until the break. As you see, our interns and our counselors are very busy. They're seeing lots and lots of students. At the 7-12 level, This doesn't even begin to scratch the surface in terms of the number of students that the actual counselors are seeing, the academic counselors, and those first-line intervention strategies that they're doing. These are the students that are needing a little bit more than what the typical program has to offer. We want to look at the impact of parent-guardian participation on our students. That's something, an objective that has been added in talking with the assistant principals, and the counselors. These are some of the categories that we're going to begin collecting data. How many parents do we have coming to these events? And we want to actually try to track the names of these students whose parents are participating in these events and see if there's any type of statistical significance between the parents that are there participating and those that are not. We anticipate that there will be, but I think it would be good to have some numbers behind that. In terms of the hard data we have around truancy, suspensions, and expulsions, the truancy numbers look very good. The data that you're looking at right now, the comparison with last year is the first 69 days of the school year. First 69 last year, first 69 days this year. So to be declared a truant, a student has 3 or more days of unexcused absence during the course of the school year. At this point last year, that number was at 332. This year it's down 14%. Only 285 students are at that level. Our suspension rates and expulsion rates, unfortunately, are up this year. We are seeing an increase of 31% in terms of the events and 28% in terms of the number of days of suspension. The significant area that we're seeing that in is in substance use. As you see, that's up almost 50%. Believe it or not, the weather is also a factor in that. The weather, if we have rainy days or days where the weather is poor, the student behavior on campus tends to be better. But we have a pattern right now where we've had very, very little inclement weather. And so students are out more, and sometimes, particularly at the secondary level, they're leaving campus and making poor choices. We expect to see these numbers level out and decline as we go through the end of the year. Expulsions, as we look at that final number, they're up significantly. Again, as we're looking at the 32 expulsions we've had so far this year, 19 of those are related to substance use or possession.
Predominant use is?
Marijuana, by far.
So, just any questions? I do want to make the point that a lot of the goals that we've developed and that we all developed together actually grow from the LEA plan.
Right.
Remember the district leadership team, the district school leadership team, and the PI status. So that became kind of the backgrounder for the development of the goal, and a lot of the goals are actually aligned with that LEA plan. And as you look across them, you will see a lot of similarity and emphasis where we found the points of emphasis during that whole process. Then these goals reflect those points of emphasis.
And when does that plan need to be revisited?
That plan will be revisited. We'll have a DSLT meeting probably in February, kind of a check-in meeting with everybody. And then next September, we'll take a good look. Once we get the new CST data back in, that'll be the time for that DSLT to come back together and really dig in.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Item H, approval of the minutes of December 13th, 2011.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item I, comments from the public. Under Government Code Section 54954.3A, members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any items of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the school district. In accordance with Board Policy BP 9323, each speaker is allocated a total of 5 minutes to address the board for a maximum of 20 minutes on each subject matter. While the above referenced government code allows speakers to criticize the district's policies, procedures, programs, services, and/or employees, the district does have a current policy, BPAR 1312, specific to complaints against employees. Should comments from the public pertain to a specific district employee, the board requests that the complaints first be submitted in writing to the employee's immediate supervisor for investigation. The board does not take action or discuss items not appearing on the agenda. The board values public comments and wishes to convey that although board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda, they listen carefully and appreciate and value input from the public. And do we have these speaker cards? Please state your name and address for the record, please. I'll give the card to Donna.
Lisa Badley. I live at 106 Lamio Drive here in Petaluma. And since Mike gets to listen to me all the time, I thought all of you should too. Troy's actually heard me a few times. So that's what happens when you go to sporting events. The reason why when the school calendar started changing, when it started earlier, I grumbled a lot. I spoke to Greta. She said they wanted to align us to the JC, except this year we started a week earlier than the JC. But I just went with it. Okay, I understand. But now that we're ending school, Memorial Day weekend, I think we've forgotten a lot about the student athletes in the springtime. We had last year, here's a great example, Petaluma High won NCS, North Coast Section Championships in softball. It's as far as you can go. We don't go to the state level in softball. And it was a week and a half after school was out, and nobody was there. Nobody heard about it. I'm not even sure most of the school even knows, because there was no announcement. Our oldest daughter actually won NCS. She came back to school. They were the conquering heroes for the whole week. They had announcements. You know, they had a little thing where everybody was introduced. I can't quite say it was a rally, but I think it was like long lunch type thing. And so it was very different. We have a lot of kids participating in spring sports. And I don't see why school has to end on Memorial Day weekend. That's another problem. A lot of family traditions and events that they normally have on Memorial Day, you have to choose. Do I go see my niece graduate on one side of the family and skip the family event that you've been doing for 20 years on the other because of graduation on a Memorial Day weekend? It puts people driving on a very dangerous weekend, you know, if they want to come see their family members graduate. The other thing that happened last year, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen again, is they were trying to put both graduations on the same day. This, even though we have a large number of people, this is still quite a small town. I generally go to both graduations. There's no way I could have done both. I went last year to both graduations. Will I this year? I'm not sure, but I know the year before that I also went to both graduations. Having them 2.5 hours apart, especially with parking, talking afterwards to people, giving them their accolades for graduating, it's not possible. I'm hoping that never occurs again. So this is what I wanted to address. I don't know when the right time is, when you guys are voting, but I know last year when I was thinking about it, it was way too late. You guys had already chosen the calendar. I've kind of sent an email out. It's my actual account is Michael Badley at sbcglobal.net. My dad made it up. I don't know why he did it. Sexist, I guess. I have no idea. He's helping me out because I couldn't do it. It was about 12 years ago. I'm now Lisa Badley at hotmail.com after a call from my husband yesterday. So anyway, I think that's just about covers everything. So I'm really hoping that you guys will think of everybody. And we want our children to participate in high school. Is that not our goal? Whatever event, whether it's band, sports, because it makes them a better student, it makes them a better member of the community, and to not help them so they're recognized for their efforts, I think it's a travesty, actually. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you all later. I'm Lisa Hilbert, 310 Lydia Court. I'm back. I came back today to just kind of reiterate what I spoke about in October. Since then, I spoke to very many people and put a lot of emails out. I've gotten a lot of responses on email and letters. I have a letter from a parent that couldn't be here that was going to speak tonight. One of the coaches from the softball team that went to the NCS last year is going to speak possibly at the next meeting, couldn't make it tonight. There's many people that are very interested in the schedule. As Lisa talked about, sports is very important. you know, the high school schedule is very important. I'm trying to represent the whole gamut of people in our district that have concerns about the schedule. I'm a PE specialist at Grant Elementary School that I may have mentioned before, and there's a lot of concern from the elementary school parents of the kids going back to school earlier in August than they need to. And people would like to have their summer. People would like to have their family time, and all that we're asking as a community is that the schedule is looked at, to adjust the schedule slightly, to start a little bit later in August, have a more normal spring break aligned with the traditional Easter holiday or traditional spring break holiday, and as Lisa's mentioned, to not have graduation Memorial Weekend given the busyness of the traveling and the people traveling and the sports. My son plays baseball, and his team could be in the same position this year or next year if it continues on Memorial Weekend. I just want to make a point too that I've done a lot of research into the calendars around the county, and they're not all the same. There's schools that start later, earlier, get out later, have different spring breaks. So I think the Petaluma City School District has had a strong, all the other districts follow our calendar, the West County, so I think we could be a leader and go back to the calendar we had a couple years ago. I have a lot of friends in Santa Rosa, and I see that we followed their calendar that they changed to about 5 or 6 years ago, which was the start in the middle of August, having spring break the third week in March, and getting on Memorial Weekend. And I don't think that we necessarily need to follow that particular schedule, because I don't think it works for our particular community. And as I mentioned, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people. People are very supportive of trying to get as many people to write you guys and to come out to meetings, and it's tough. Our community is very involved, and a couple of the people that were going to come speak, we have another meeting that we're going to tonight. So I just wanted to reiterate this, and you know, as the calendar comes out, I don't know if there's a proposed calendar, but you know, we'd like you to have as much input as possible. Thank you for letting me speak with you again.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers for public comment? Okay.
Well, before we go on, perhaps Steve can talk a little bit just to the public at large and the speakers about some of the factors that go into the calendaring.
Well, it's not on our agenda, so, but we certainly, have that as a discussion item.
Or maybe they can address inquiries to Steve?
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you have any questions, I mean, we are in the process of developing the calendar, and as a matter of fact, we do try to have a common calendar to the greatest extent we can countywide because of the cost of transportation. And there's a meeting this month that Petaluma Federation Teacher President and myself will be attending to provide input to it. There are 3 calendars that are being circulated for consideration at this time that we'll be having further discussion on on September 18th, or January 18th, excuse me.
I guess the question I have is there any flexibility at all? I mean, I understand getting the common calendar, but you know, a couple days at Thanksgiving, a couple days here and there, that's all we're kind of asking for, is just adjusting minorly, not majorly. So that's kind of the question I have. If we have a chance, you know, to affect it, you know, a day here, a day there.
Okay, so if you could perhaps follow up, that would be great, so we can, since it's not on our agenda tonight, I'd like to move along. Okay. Item J, reporting activities and correspondence of school board members. Prior to the break, there was attendance at various winter concerts, and during break and beyond, basketball games, including announcements. And then last night, we had a meeting of trustees, a workshop up at the Sonoma County Office of Education regarding the Brown Act and conflicts of interest for trustees. It was a very educational program. Item K, approval of the consent agenda by consolidated motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Under Administration and Human Resources, item 7, the Williams Settlement Quarterly Uniform Complaint Report Summary. We are required to address that and acknowledge it. We had 0 complaints this particular quarter. There was a question I had about the number 8, the information item on staff teaching English language learners. Jane, can I ask you about that after? Please? Thank you. Under business services, everything's consent. Any questions about the ADA report? Under educational services, all consent and discussion. Any questions about the new board policy on transitional kindergarten? We have? Any questions?
On the transition kindergarten program, it's unfunded in the governor's budget, so you may not see it back for second reading.
Oh.
Yeah, it was on the news last night.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yes.
Well, I guess I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed.
As we all are, but it was not unexpected.
No. Okay, well, there isn't any money,
Put a lot of
so.
work into that, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of work done
It'll be
statewide on transition K.
So we can just gotta keep that on hold in case things change in future years.
And we are looking at some options. We're looking at some possible options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about that?
Absolutely.
So I heard on the news that San Jose is doing it. This was 2 weeks ago, so that's like because we're moving up the days, you would have like a pre-K program in our district. Eventually, that's what you would like.
And that's what we're exploring, is that we have heard that some other districts are actually using some options that are within the Ed code, so we're going to be looking at those options.
San Jose was on the news as being one of them.
Great.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we are going to adjourn the regular meeting to closed session, and then we'll be returning out later to report on any action taken. Until then, let's go ahead and do the calendar of activities in case anybody here would like to know what's happening. Item N. Our next regular meeting will be held here at 6 p.m. on January 24th. Do we have any specifics as to what will be on that?
We're anticipating that we'll provide a budget update regarding the impact of the governor's proposed budget on the district.
Okay. And other than normal routine. Okay, and then for upcoming events, we've got parent nights that they've already talked about. We've got a holiday next Monday, and wow, January's nice and quiet. All right, so now we're going to adjourn to closed session. Thank you all for coming.